Welcome to another weekly preview show with Northshore Prep Report. We're excited today. We've got a really good show. Had some great football action on Friday night. We'll preview upcoming football action on this week, week 10. Before we do that, we're really pleased and excited today. We've got a special guest with us, Cass Hargis, as always, our co-host tonight. But we've got Eric Richey. We're going to talk some volleyball, and I can't be more excited about this. I'm late to the volleyball game, and I apologize for that, girls. But it's time to get the show on the road. It's playoff time. Brackets are released today. Eric, talk to us a little bit, and I'll throw up Division I. But before you cover Division I for us, what I'd like you to do is just give us a rundown of kind of the history of volleyball on the North Shore. It's a rich tradition with some really good teams who have made really deep runs and won state championships.
You're right, Mike. First of all, man, you and Cass are doing a great job. I appreciate you having me on. I look up, Cass, you're doing Talking Ball, y'all, with Lance and Jason. You guys are doing a great job. Mike, you're just crushing it with your North Shore, prep report. I'm really proud of both you guys for what you're doing. And thanks for having me on. And look, I was late to the volleyball game too. Picture this. I was a sports anchor for 20 years. And guess how many volleyball highlights I showed? Like on the news at 10 o'clock. And I worked in like markets like
I'm guessing it rhymes. It rhymes with hero.
It does rhyme with hero. And it was actually because Ed Daniels, I showed one when I was at ABC 26. Kim Willoughby, when I was there in like 2002, was playing for Hawaii. He was one of the best players in the country. She was a local product. Anyway, so I get into the game, full disclosure, because my daughter was, as a single dad, I wanted her to play baseball. I'm like, you're going to be a softball player. Oh, you're going to be a volleyball player. I didn't even know you couldn't sub in for different people. You got to sub in. Like, I didn't know any of the rules. So it was the COVID year. And there was no media for anything. And you guys remember on the North Shore, Diggs in Covington, real close to Hannon High School. Yep. So Emma's getting ready to try out for Mount Carmel's 8th grade indoor team. I can't find a gym to get her in, but we can sure play a bunch of beach volleyball. 5 years later, she's now a freshman playing Division I college beach volleyball at Jacksonville. But what I started to do at Diggs, I had a camera in the car at all times, right? That's what I do. So I started just shooting the finals of these little hot shot tournaments and stuff and interviewing like little Colin Tullis when he was 8 years old. And he was like, I'm the best 8-year-old player in the United States. And, now he's on Team USA, right? Yeah. In the 17 years. But that's how it started. And I just throw it up on Facebook and all of a sudden, boom, 100 people liked it. And, the parents couldn't get enough. And so that's, full disclosure, how I started covering volleyball. I'm embarrassed at the lack of coverage, for the first 2 decades of my career, but we've certainly made up for it. And, to answer your question, it didn't take me long to figure out how good volleyball was on the North Shore. And you're rich in tradition, right? It starts to me with the top one on your list, right? You got Slidell, coached by Danny Tullis. And when he won the state championship last year, it was the first time a public school had won, and people go on the research books. God, it's been over a decade. When's the last time? 2011 Fontainebleau. Oh, coached by Danny Tullis. Yeah. And in between, he won like 5 state championships at Pope John Paul.
The recipe works.
Right. So, so it starts with him to me. But it doesn't end with him because there are so many great coaches and programs on the North Shore. Just look at, North Shore with Danny Davis. He is awesome. I freaking love Danny Davis and the job he's done. Last year, nobody gave him any credit. All he does is start off by playing the best teams in the state. Yep. I know because my daughter opened up against North Shore, so it's Mount Carmel, North Shore, and they would always give Mount Carmel a battle. But then the next game, they'd play Dominican, and then they'd play St. Thomas More. He just takes his teams getting a beating, but that all pays off right about now, right? He went on a run last year. Nobody talked about North Shore. Hahnville was the big team last year around here. They had Mariah Mott, who's now a freshman stud at Southern. A couple of other, had a senior libero, senior setter, and a outside hitter I interviewed today, Macy Hollingsworth, just got her 1,000th career kill. Point being, Hahnville was supposed to go. And we've got a cameraman shooting highlights of the Hahnville crowd after 2 sets. And when they hold up one, they just need one more point for the win. They held it up for like 3 or 4 points, and they finally sat down. And then North Shore tied it at 24, won that 3rd set, and then they reverse swept them. And then all of a sudden, Nobody's talking about Danny Davis and Northshore. They're in the semifinals playing friggin' Dominican. So there's those two guys. Coach Mule at Fontainebleau. What a job she's done. She's had great players. A great tradition. Big fan of what Coach Mule's been able to do. And then Mandeville. Like Mandeville beat St. Thomas More this year. And Mandeville is, before I really started covering it, Mandeville's always had, big, tall players. Coach Schoenkamp does such a good job.
Great.
Right. And then, we don't even see Hannon yet because we're talking D1. But Ponchatoula, I know that was a big moment for them just to get a home playoff game. And they finally did that. I believe it was last year for the first time. Covington, Coach Brent, is it Coker? Is the coach at Covington?
I believe
this
so.
guy, he is a Danny Tullis disciple. He literally called up Danny and said, I need to just learn from you. I'm just going to sit on the bench, go to your practices. And this guy is as active. Covington beat Dunham in the preseason. And all of a sudden, people are like, what? Covington?
Yeah,
What's going on
Covington?
There? Yeah. But again, he gets that great, pedigree just from learning from osmosis from Coach Danny. And I know he's a big club coach as well. And then, so there's, Division I, we haven't even talked about SSA or Hannon and their programs. And, so I'm rambling here on you, Mike. So I don't even know what question you got for me.
No, that's
kind of the tradition of the North Shore.
I love it.
Look, I love it. And I think the audience is going to love it as well because those girls deserve so much attention. We talk so much about the high school athlete in general and how much we ask of them and how much time and dedication it takes, not only at school, but outside of school ball and program ball and rec ball, all the other things they do now. It's very time consuming. So the effort they give, they deserve all the attention. Eric, if you could walk us through a little bit about these matchups in Division I. Obviously we've got some high seeded teams. We're very heavy in Division I. Ponchatoula just misses a home game. They end up with the 17 seed. Goes to show you power rankings and how important that is in today's world, right? But talk a little bit about, obviously in my mind, Slidell and North Shore are once again contenders, but there are times where you see in volleyball that these mid-seeded teams make these runs and get hot late. Talk about kind of who your favorite is in Division I. It doesn't have to be a North Shore team, and then who your surprise team might be.
Yeah, and I'm just as a Mount Carmel parent, for the last 4 years, getting pummeled by Dominican in the finals and the state championship, I'm never going to vote against Dominican. Now, in my heart last year, I felt Mount Carmel had a better team than Dominican, but they got smoked by Dominican in the semifinals. Like, I'm not going to ever get over that loss. My daughter might get over that loss. I'm not getting over that loss because Dominican then goes on to the state championship and then loses to Slidell, right? Tremendous story. Danny Tullis, we all know what he's been through and his family the last few years. So, pulling for him to get that win. But I'm telling you right now, Mount Carmel wins against Dominican, they're going to beat Slidell. I know some Slidell people are like, whoa. But when I'm in a bad mood and I need to see something good, all I do is put on Mount Carmel Slidell's regular season game last year. Mount Carmel smoked them in 3 sets. And it was
different matchup.
Yeah. So let's get back on track. So these matchups here, sure, Slidell is going to be your favorite on your North Shore teams. Slidell probably gets matched up against Southside in the quarterfinals. Okay. The first round, that crazy Thursday at the Cajun Dome. Mm-hmm. The very first year that the tournament was at the Cajun Dome after years at the Pontchartrain Center, Southside pulled off a ridiculous upset. And if you've ever been to these state tournaments, especially at the Pontchartrain Center, there was always like a humongous crowd loud for Mount Carmel or Dominican or Chappelle or a Cabrini, a North Shore team or a New Orleans team. Same thing in Lafayette at the Cajun Dome. Southside had this ridiculous crowd. They won. They upset somebody. But guess what? That's who Danny Tullis and company will have to play, that crowd in the quarters if everything goes as planned. The one matchup on the North Shore I think you really want to pay attention to is North Shore and Mandeville, because if both of those teams win their respective first-round game, they're facing each other in the regionals. Whoever wins goes to the Cajun Dome in the state tournament. So that's going to be a real intriguing matchup because, again, think about it. Mandeville, again, nobody's really talking about them, kind of like North Shore last year. And all they did was beat one of the best teams in the state this year, St. Thomas More. Mandeville's had some big wins this year. So that's an intriguing matchup. Watch for North Shore Mandeville to play. Fountain Blue, I think they're going to get to the second round, and then they're going to have a very tough match against Dutchtown. They played them already this year. They beat Dutchtown in Dutchtown's tournament. So Fountain Blue is going to have an interesting test against, in my opinion, Dutchtown in the second round. But then guess who? Guess who they play if they get to the quarters? They'll probably face Dominican and Fountain Blue. And look, Coach Muley hasn't backed down from anybody. If you look at the losses they have like 15 or 16 losses this year, but they're losing to the top teams in the state, very akin to what Danny Davis does at North Shore. So I like Fountain Blue in Division I. I like North Shore or Mandeville. Toss the dice and let's see what happens. Good luck to Covington against Lafayette. That's who they play in that first round. Mm-hmm. And then they would have to play Slidell. So, it would be the mentor versus the student there. But I like Slidell getting, deep again. And I think, full disclosure, I think Danny Tullis is the best coach in the state. All right. I think he's number one. And I'm going to go with Jessica Burke, St. Thomas More, and Jessica Shadley are tied for number 2 for what they've been able to do, especially after they graduate, like the Gatorade Player of the Year, like St. Thomas More done twice in the last 5 years. Dominican's done it. They just put players that on paper the other team should beat, but somehow Dominican and St. Thomas More do it, and I attribute that to their coaching. So right below Danny Tullis, but Danny Tullis to me is the GOAT.
Oh, yeah. I love it. Eric, great breakdown. Look, let's move to Division II. SSA sitting there at a number 2 seed. They've had I looked early in the season, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't play a lot of games early. It looked like they were kind of late to the party of getting a lot of games in. Is that something that's typical of them?
I didn't notice that as much, Mike, and I probably did, but it kind of when I do the Power 25 and I'm looking at records, and it's almost like white noise after a while. So I kind of scoot by that. I kind of look at the Power 25 opponents. To me, that's what I zero in on. Did they play top 25 teams? Mm-hmm. And like teams like AOL on the West Bank right next to Shaw, love Don Landry. They stream their games on VSN, but they have like 2 top Power 25 wins. They're 32-3, but yet we don't even have them in our top 25 because, they're beating Thomas Jefferson and,
no knock on them,
like,
but
it's different. It's different from what the other teams. So SSA has played some really good teams. To me, they got on the map 2 years ago when they, like Mandeville did this year, beat St. Thomas More, because that's to me, that's the cream of the crop. They're such a good team. But they're gonna face Ellender. They're gonna obviously get by them. I think I can say that pretty confidently. But they're gonna probably in the quarters face Sam Houston, and Sam Houston's a kind of hit or miss team. They've been just outside of the Power 25 all year. I think SSA has a real clear shot to the semifinals. Lakeshore, I think, is kind of a rough year for them. It's going to be a challenge to get to the Cajun Dome. And then, kind of like you said, we talked about Sam Houston. They play one of your North Shore teams with Pearl River. I like Sam Houston in that game because I think that's going to be a matchup in the quarterfinals that first Thursday at the Cajun Dome. And I like SSA making it to the semis.
No, that's great. Moving on to Division III, Cass Hargis is
there we go.
That's
what I was waiting on.
We know who he's in for. Hey, Eric, before you go here, Hannon's the story here, right? But one thing that I want to mention that I was told today, which is pretty exciting, is Franklinton at a 32 seed. Yeah. The first time in school history.
Good for them.
Playoffs in volleyball. How amazing is that for those ladies in that program? Awesome. Because the town of Franklinton, just in the sports world, is different. So
they love the demons, but
they love some demon sports. But kudos to them. I have to give a special shout out to them. That's a really neat accomplishment for a school with a lot of history that's been around a long time.
No, I love it. I'm glad you pointed that out. And look, VSN's history is we pull for those underdogs, and we always try to give credit credit to the other teams and teams that may not get as much credit. Really, our whole preface of what we've done with volleyball is to put names on these players, like how we know the quarterback for the football team, but who's the setter or who's the big outside hitter for their team. So we've always tried, my little spiel to our announcers is always, the two things we stress is positivity and professionalism, right? High school athletics, and I learned during my internship back in the 80s in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, to always be positive. Never speak of a high school player in a negative light. Football, kid throws an interception. Nobody on the planet feels worse than the kid or his parents in the crowd or whatever. So they don't need an announcer when they go back and watch the game on VSN going, oh, he wishes he had that back. What a bad decision. Lame duck. I tell our guys, immediately switch that to the defense and praise that, jump in the route, good hands, talk about the turnovers this team has this season, that type stuff. So the same for volleyball. I told my announcers, know the other team, because I want you to put light and put names to their top players, just like we would do if it was football or baseball as well. Yeah. But I'm going to say this, and I do not mean to slight anyone. This is how confident I feel about Hannon's draw, and just looking at their path to the semifinals. Coach Bonifay could literally bench her starters until the semifinals, and they would be in the semifinals.
Eric, that's why we have you on, man.
The in-depth analysis. There we go. I'll let her know tomorrow.
She could. Let her know. And I saw her Sunday at the LSU game, right, with her husband. And I always say hi to them. They sit in the same spot all the time. I didn't tell her that, right? The brackets didn't come out. But when I looked at it, because, you invited me on the show, so I want to look at my Northshore brackets. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You can bench the starters right up to the semis. But you're going to want to play them because you want to be sharp, but I get it. But that's my hot take of this show, I guess.
No, that's impressive. So
when they get to those semis, though, they're going to play a team that they lost to already in Parkview. If the seeds match up.
Great call, Cass. Hey, look. Parkview Baptist, my daughter played club ball for 2 years for Parkview Baptist's coach, Allison Didier Leak, who's the daughter of Chip Didier, who is the son of Ray Didier, as you in a baseball would know, Didier Field at Nichols. So
I know that one well.
Point being, I know Parkview Baptist pretty well. And I know a bunch of their players. And like Mount Carmel, Cass, you're a coach. Maybe you tell me, does the AD schedule make the schedule, or is it the coach that makes the schedule? It's the coach. So, Coach Taylor, what are you doing after you play your rival, Dominican, scheduling a road trip to Baton Rouge to play the hottest team in the state of Louisiana? Are you looking for pain? Because that's what you got. You got 2 losses. And that's like LSU scheduling Auburn right after Alabama or Georgia or something, right? Don't they take a week? They take a week off before. Yeah. They need to take a week off after, right?
Schedule Western Kentucky after that game,
Parkview Baptist may be the second best team they played all year. And they play them the day after a 5-set war against Dominican. That was
sometimes you want to find out who your kids are, and sometimes you need to break them to build them back up, I guess.
Yeah, and then right before the playoffs, I'm like, oh man, that was cringeworthy. Point being, though, Cass, you're spot on. Parkview Baptist may have the best player in the state of Louisiana. I don't know if you've heard of Yana Times. You might remember her dad, Derek Times, played football at LSU and was a sprinter. Her mom, Debbie Paris Times, was actually the LSU Athlete of the Year over Shaq. She was an Olympian for Jamaica. So they are just awesome people. Go to all of her games. And, Emma played with Yana in club ball and got to know Derek and Debbie very well. Great people. But Yana is a product of 2 Olympic-style athletes, and she can jump out the gym. And when you say in volleyball, if you can hit inside the 10-foot line, that's a monster hammer, right? That's a throwdown. Yana, I've seen hit the 3-foot line and the 4-foot line. Like, you're not defending that. When she's on, when she gets a pass set and a kill, watch out. And they got a veteran a 2-year starter at setter, Aiden Polk, who's going to play Division II college indoor ball. They have a 6'3" outside, Marin Price, who's just a sophomore. They got another Venardo at the outside as a senior. That team is loaded. They lost a bunch of games early, but they won, I think, 18 of their last 19. So Hannon will have their hands full against Parkview Baptist. Yes.
That's what matters.
Yep.
Well, look, Eric, let's wrap it up with Division IV here. Defending state champion North Lake Christian, made a great run last year. Big for them. Pope John Paul's had a really good season. STA barely misses a home game, and then Pine kind of sneaks in late to get in as well. But talk about North Lake and Pope, specifically, and those kind of top seeds and what you see from them this year. I know I've got to see North Lake a little up close and personal, and I'm just amazed at the athleticism and the height that they have across the board, and I don't see a lot of it. But talk about that.
Yeah, it's North Lake Christian again is a team that isn't the big team everybody's talking about in Division IV, and all they've done is won state championships the last 2 years. All right, so they're doing something right, and they've graduated players each year, and they still have a good team, and they ended up 20th in our Power 25, which is like a mythical poll combining all 5 divisions. So they're right there.
I love what you do. That's great too.
I appreciate it, and look, it's fun, and we get those panelists all over the state, right? Up in the North, Louisiana, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, Bayou, North Shore. We're all there. Every area is represented. And those ballots come in every Sunday night, and we go through them. And North Lake Christian has massive respect amongst the people that know volleyball in this state. So looking for big things again from North Lake Christian. Pope John Paul, that game will be live streamed on VSN tomorrow. So will the Pine and Isidore Newman game. Let me just tell you about Pope John Paul. First year that they have live streamed on VSN, Coach Babin, he's the one that had the foresight, went out, bought the equipment, right? The baseball program bought the equipment, and he's doing the football games. He's going to do the volleyball games. Like, he has the camera option. VSN provides the director. Like, he's Coach Babin, he's in, and he gets it. And I'm so on board and helping with whatever they do. Is the same with Cass and what Hannon has done with us this year as well. We did some volleyball, a little football, and we're going to do more and more as we grow. But
well, Coach, I got to tell you a quick story on Brian.
Tell me.
I started North Shore Prep Report, and it was only to cover about 6 teams here on the North Shore. I wanted to kind of follow some kids that I had in baseball and highlight those guys. And I posted it on like a Sunday, and on Monday there's a comment on there from a guy I don't know, and it says, "Of course, somebody else not covering East St. Tammany." So I reach out. So one of my friends, Logan Peterson, he's an assistant baseball coach at Fontainebleau. He's over there with Ricky Nolan. He comments on it. I reach out to him, and I'm like, "Man, who's this guy, man? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just trying to cover some guys." He's like, "Oh, just call him, whatever." So I called him, and he's, we're like, "Hey, can you cover East St. Tammany?" I'm like, "Of course. Can you just get me in touch with whoever?" And I knew a lot of the baseball programs. So that's how I started covering East St. Tammany and Pope. And look, thank goodness I did, because last year Pope in baseball, and I covered a couple games for you, made a huge run. North Shore made a run. Slidell, I had Coach Cameron Lewis on the show earlier today. They all made runs, and Slidell was a place to be. And now look at football with Slidell. It's been another hotbed of chaos and craziness this season.
True. Right. That's great. And look, and we were so glad we did baseball. To me, and I'm getting off topic just for a second, to me, last year with Hannon and Pope, I wanted to go double barrel and prove to you guys that we could really do baseball well. And to me, and I'm a baseball guy, right? I grew up in Ohio in the 70s, so I had the Big Red Machine in my blood early. And, we moved in like 78, and I've just been a hardcore Reds fan. Like, I got Pete Rose stuff, Johnny Bench, Big Red Machine, all back on the wall. But point being, I really love baseball. That's my favorite sport. And so when we got the wireless transmitters to do our camera and put that center field camera in, to me, that's a game changer, because it kind of separates, like low budget, one camera above home plate, following the ball the whole time. Or now you have a center field camera to give that perspective of, we've all become accustomed to, when we watch baseball, the pitch comes, we want to see behind the pitcher, and the the shot from center field. Now VSN does that with all of our baseball. That's like a must do. I want 3 cameras. I want 1 in center field. I still want the high home because when they hit the ball, you got to follow the ball, and that's your high home camera. And a 3rd camera, you have to have the low angle shot to get a good shot of the pitcher, good shot, tight shot of the hitter, back and forth. You need that. And as it flows, it just looks so much better. So that's my little baseball spiel about having those wireless cameras and putting 1 in center field. We were putting them on the back of people's pickup trucks. If we didn't have a tripod, I needed, hey, can I get a pickup truck back there? We'll put it on the back bed. We're going to put a tripod up, but we got to have this camera. And it made all the difference. To me, it made all the difference. But Pope John Paul, my last point being, I just feel horrible what happened to Coach Erica Williams. I don't know the whole story. I do know the story from Erica Williams. She is an awesome individual, a tremendous coach. I don't agree with how it was handled. She's no longer the head coach. She was the coach since 8th grade when those players are now seniors, and they got a great senior group. She was their coach from 8th grade on, right? She was Danny's assistant, took over for Danny when he went to Slidell. So it's so tough for a team to make a change like that this late in the season. I wish those players well, and I know the assistant took over. I remember meeting her when we covered our first couple of Pope volleyball games. I wish Erica Williams the best, and I hope whatever happens, she's going to land on her feet. She's an awesome individual, so I love Coach Erica, and I really like that team too. That Pope John Paul team is very talented, and they can make a run as well. I don't know too much about St. Thomas Aquinas or Pine, so I'll just leave you with that, fellas. That's about as much North Shore volleyball as I can spew at you in one podcast.
That's awesome. That is great.
Eric, that's incredible. And look, I just made a couple volleyball posts here recently, and we know the communities up here are so close. We know so many people. I know some of these coaches personally, and some of the players now personally, just from kind of being around the community. And I'll say this. Friday night football will always be king because they play 1 time a week, and it's Friday night, and it's Friday night, the bands and cheerleaders.
Yep.
But if you've never been to a volleyball game on a Tuesday at 4:30, it is an environment like no other that you've ever been to. It is fantastic. The student body support it. The number of fans that make these games are tremendous, and just the whole atmosphere and the aura of the crowd. Everybody's on top of each other. It's a phenomenal environment. So get out there and support them if you can. Eric, once again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate everything you do for not only North Shore, but high school sports in general. Tell the folks at home a little bit about VSN and how they can subscribe.
Yeah, just, Varsity Sports Now. Obviously, if you follow our social medias on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we always put links to our games. You subscribe, become a monthly subscriber for $11.99. You get access to all of our content live and on demand, just like a Netflix or ESPN Plus. You just pay your monthly fee and you can watch, on Friday night, I am literally right here and I've got tabs open. I'm watching 4 or 5 football games at once. And, literally for the price of admission to go to a game, you can watch as many games as you want for an entire month. So we think it's a pretty good deal. We take it pretty seriously. The responsibility we take for these schools that have hired us to live stream their games and put their product out there to everyone. We take it serious. We got a great crew, some unbelievable announcers. It's just unbelievable. The Jim Derrys, Paul Borons, and Jace Lejeunes, all these guys do such a good job. Cass Argis was a beast last year. You were a beast, Mike, doing baseball. So we're very honored to have guys like you guys come on VSN, call some games. But hey, it's a labor of love. We love what we're doing. We try to do it the right way, like I say, with positivity and professionalism.
Well, look, if I give anybody advice, if Jim Derry's on the call, don't have a sleeping baby anywhere within the vicinity. It's going to get loud, and you'll know when some exciting stuff happens. I love Jim. He does a great job. His Datitude podcast is phenomenal, too.
Yep, so Jim Rapier, too, his sidekick in crime.
Yeah, Jim and Jim. Those guys are great. Well, Eric,
I had the pleasure of doing a baseball game with them last year. That was a
that's right. That's right. You did.
That's right. You were the threesome there in that. I remember that.
It was awesome.
Once again, thank you, Eric, for your time. Appreciate everything at VSN, and God bless you. Stay focused on what you're doing. There's a lot of people that appreciate it, and we look forward to continue to follow you.
Thanks for having me on. And like I said at the onset, both you guys, Cass and Mike, keep doing what you're doing. Very, very excited for you guys. Love your enthusiasm and your passion. Labor of love, man. Keep it up. But you guys got these shows. You know, it's a beast that needs fed. You got to do it all the time now. It's like, you know, oh, what did we get ourselves into? We got to do this show again. But I can tell from both of you that you enjoy it, and that's going to take you far, man. Just enjoy it and just have fun with it.
Thanks, Aaron. We appreciate it.
You got it. Take care.
He's great.
All right, Cass. Man, we got some volleyball then, brother.
Dude, well, you're talking about the atmospheres at home games, which they're phenomenal in high school volleyball. But if you've never been to when they make it to the Cajun Dome for the quarters and semifinals, finals, it is wild. There's like 3 games going on at a time. It's crazy. Yeah. Like we were in Lafayette, we would get off of school. I was at St. Thomas More, and they would play at 11 o'clock on a Friday. We would get out of school and go, and it was awesome. I mean, it's great. But yeah.
So look, let's jump real quick. Let's switch over to football. I know this is a big one because it's week 10. Playoffs are on the horizon. Let's first kind of go through some district standings a little bit. We'll kind of jump through this a little bit, and then we'll get into next week. We can kind of recap last week a little bit. I know that we did that Saturday morning with Red River Run. But one thing, District 6-5A, once again, have to congratulate St. Paul's on another district championship. I know Coach Sears isn't going to – that doesn't mean anything right now. There's another game left. The little brown jug is coming up, right? So we know what that means. But, it's – honestly, if you would have told me that the district would have ended up this way – preseason, I'd have told you were wrong. And if you'd have told me it in week 5, I'd have told you were wrong. So a lot's happened here in the last few weeks, right?
Yeah, no, it has. And it's no surprise to see St. Paul's back again up at the top. It just seems like that district just kind of runs through them. But it is a little bit surprising to see. How about the job? We talked about it last week. Coach Buckles at Hammond. I mean, not just that they finished 3rd in district, but overall they're 6-3 going into their last game with Ponchatoula, which you see what Ponchatoula did last week. We called them the best 1-7 team in the state. They proved us right. How about that? But I mean, just back to St. Paul's and what they've done with Corrales at running back. I think that was his 9th straight 100-yard game, which
and Cass, it's not 105, 110, 120 yards. It's like 150, 160. And what's crazy about him, and I've seen him for a long time in multiple sports, and he's always been very athletic. His breakaway ability right now is what's making him different, right? It's not 10, 12, 15-yard gains. He'll go 80 yards on you real quick, and you're not going to close on him. Like his speed, I don't know what he runs at a 40. I don't really care. He runs away from everybody anyway. So he's fast enough, and he's a big body kid. He's strong. He's a workhorse. Coach Sears, Kenny Sears Jr., they talk about so highly about him and his work ethic and what he means to the team from a leadership standpoint. But he's put that team on his back for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you don't rush for like last week. He had 159 yards, 2 touchdowns, even threw a touchdown pass last week. But
2 weeks ago,
you don't do that without an offensive line that is able to, and that offensive line is good. But like you said, his breakaway speed takes those 12-yard gains and turns them into 50-yard touchdown runs. But it's been impressive. I'm excited and interested to see what these guys do in the playoffs. Like Division I select is deep, it's talented, but depending on who they match up with, the way that they can control the ball and control the game with that running game, that gives them a chance in any game they play.
Yeah, look, the recipe is simple: play defense and run the ball, and it works in the playoffs. It works for everybody. But you want to get opposite of Carr. You kind of hope you're not on the same side of Carr or Catholic. Is typically on the opposite sides. And then look, John Curtis played Carr really well. So that's going to be another one to watch out in the playoffs that, John Curtis is going to be a player. And lastly, I wanted to touch on this. I almost cut up that your speech from last week on Ponchatoula being best one in 17, but they knock off Covington. Huge win for Coach Walters in that group. And I didn't know what happened on Saturday, but I got the stats last night. And Will Walker. I think he caught 6 balls for like 70 yards and a touchdown. He ran a little bit. I think he threw one pass, was incomplete. But their young quarterback Oakland, he's a sophomore. Will Walker's a sophomore. They've got some big guys. They're physical. Don't be surprised if they continue to do some good things. And look, the Hammond Ponchatoula game has huge ramifications. It's not a game that's just going to be a nothing game. So that's huge. And look, lastly, I got to give my boy Andrew Schaufstall a shout out. Sophomore offensive lineman at St. Paul's. He's going to be one of the best in the state, if not the nation. He got an offer from NC State this weekend on his official. He just got invited to Mississippi State for their home game against Georgia. You can just watch that kid's officials and offers tick up. So proud of him, man. He's a great young man, comes from a great family. Let's move to District 7-5A. Look, you and I were both home Thursday night.
How about that game?
It's Chalmette and Slidell, and we're just texting the whole game, right? We're watching it on TV. Another VSN broadcast, by the way.
Yep.
Jim Derry on that call. But what a crazy game. I'm enamored with Chalmette. I don't think the loss means anything for them. They did some of this same stuff last year. They lost it was, in my mind, a bad loss to Ponchatoula because they could have won the game in 75 different ways and never did. Kudos to Ponchatoula last year. But Slidell has their second-string quarterback who plays really well. Chalmette offensively really did what they needed to do. Breeze Wilson ran for over 100 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns and over 200 yards. Dana Antoine, who I think is one of the best receivers in the state, he's a senior. Somebody's going to get lucky if they get the kid because he's dynamic. Really what I'm surprised at is Slidell's ability on offense to drive the ball on Chalmette consistently, right?
No, me too. And it's so impressive to see what Slidell has done the last 2 weeks with a backup quarterback. And that just speaks to the rest of the program and the rest of the team. It's almost like they didn't skip a beat. But You're right. I did not expect them to do – it's not surprising that they won the game, I don't think. But the way that they moved the football on offense was. And that's something that bodes well for them moving forward. And if you're Chalmette, I don't view them any differently because they lost the game. But I think all that means for them moving forward is someone in the first round is going to get an extremely tough draw when Chalmette shows up to their place. Like it's
same thing that happened last year, right?
Yeah, no, I mean it's the same thing. But you mentioned Breeze Wilson. He made a few runs that were just unbelievable. I think one got called back at like 65-yard run.
80-yard,
yeah. It gets called back. The throw he makes on the out route to tie the game with 1:20 left was like
it was like at the front pylon.
The ball had to be thrown right there, or it's picked off. Like it was impressive. But then you look up, like you're looking at the power rankings, they're 25th. So they somebody's not going to be happy, but that also means they have a big game this week with Slidell. I mean, I'm sorry, with Salmon. Like you don't want to lose that game and be on the precipice of not even making the playoffs. I don't know if that can happen, but
I'll say this: it's probably the best defense in the area in Chalmette against the best offense in the area in Salmon, and it's pretty fair to say that without really blinking at it. Dejon Howard, the quarterback at Salmon, he threw for over 200 yards again at Hammond. Jimmy Chanzy's running the ball well. Terrence Mitchell, the wide receiver for Salmon, I'm really high on him. He's a tall kid. He can run. He's got great hands. I think he caught like 7 balls for 100-something yards and a touchdown again last week. It's going to be an absolute showcase. And then Slidell at Northshore. I mean, look, Coach Sanders, and I said this early in the season, maybe week 4 or week 5, when they figured out the formula of who they were on offense with Ramon Williams and JJ Gonzalez, they've put up numbers. Like they week in and week out, they play sound defense. They try to keep the game close. They can run the ball. Now, one thing that I'll say about Northshore that I absolutely love is Coach Sanders still throws it. It's not like he's just like, hey, we're going to run it. They'll run spread and they'll throw it. And JJ, I think he's got almost 600 yards passing this season, so they can't hurt you that way. But in the win last week, I think Ramon Williams had about 50 yards rushing on like 10 carries, and it's JJ Gonzalez, quarterback, that has 100 and something yards rushing, right?
No, and going back and looking at their schedule, I mean, the win over Covington, they drop a close one, a 3-point game to Chalmette, and like they just keep showing up, and they just keep showing up, that's what you expect from a Coach Sanders team. But the game this week with Slidell, it's very simple for North Shore. Win the game and you're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
right now they're 29th overall, 28 make it. Win the game and you're in the playoffs. And I think if you would have said that at the beginning of the season, I don't know how many people would have said, yeah, North Shore's going to play a game in week 10 with a chance to go to playoffs. But
everyone would have laughed at you.
Yeah,
and look,
here we are.
And look, I can't leave Fontainebleau and Coach Kavanaugh, those guys out. They play a great first half last week in a big game against North Shore. They finally got Logan Askew back at quarterback. They threw the ball. Connor Tyson was at wide receiver. Sawyer Shane caught a big pass. I think right now they've got their best guys where they need to be for them to be successful, and that team plays hard. And I've said this almost everywhere I've been. I compare a lot of teams to what Slidell did last year in the last 2 weeks of the season, that they continue to play and play hard and do what they needed to do to build a program. And we all know Coach Kavanaugh and his history. If you're a Fontainebleau fan, sit back and watch. You're going to enjoy that, and you're going to look back at these days and go, man, I'm glad we went through that, because we are where we are now. Yeah,
no, and you make a good point too, kind of relating it to what Slidell went through at the end of last year, because everything you saw at the beginning, and I'm still talking about Slidell, their players were speaking to that. Like last year, we went through some hard times, but we kept playing, we kept showing up, and it's going to pay off this year. Fontainebleau is in a very similar spot, and if I'm Mandeville, I am like, there's no way. I don't think you're going to overlook Fontainebleau, but this is going to be, obviously, it's Fontainebleau's. Call it whatever you want. It's their Super Bowl, whatever you want to call it. But you better show up ready to play if you're Mandeville this Friday night.
No doubt. And look, I don't know if we did this, but we got to give Lakeshore their flowers. Lakeshore, huge district championship, right?
Yep.
Couldn't be more proud of those guys. Did I miss 7-4A? I think I did.
No.
Let's jump to 8-3A here.
Okay.
Look, I am enamored with this district. I think the top 3 teams in this district are as good as any. Jewel Sumner, Amite, and Pine. Jewel Sumner, and we're going to cover this in a minute because we're going to get to next week's game. But week 10 is going to be Jewel Sumner and Amite. We'll talk about that one because I'm just ecstatic about it. But this district and all, Coach Michael at Albany, they're a much improved team. Springfield's continue to build that program. We've talked about it. Bugaloosa, their head coach, the guy wins. Be patient. Give it some time. All he needs is numbers, and that's going to be fine. District 9 2A. Here's a really interesting one that happened that I don't think anybody saw, including myself. And I'll refrain from my thoughts on it because you know how personal it is to me. But this week, St. Helena plays at Pope John Paul. If Pope John Paul wins that game, it's a 3-way tie for the district championship. Now, kudos to St. Helena. They put themselves at 3-0 in the district. They're 4-4. Their 4 losses have come to really good teams. So that's a good football team. They also have a new head coach. I think it's their 4th coach in 4 years. Talked to him a little bit Friday night after the game. He loves the kids. He loves the program. So hopefully he sticks around and gives those kids, some consistency because they deserve it. But I talked to Coach Pygott on, I think it was Saturday night. This has kind of rejuvenated them in the program, right? They kind of thought after the loss to Northlake, it's over for district, right? No shot. Well, Northlake goes to St. Helena and loses. And now Pope John Paul, that's a huge game on Friday for Pope, to get a share of district title. Puts them at 6-4 and 3-1 in district and really sets them up for the playoffs.
Yeah, it is. And you have a St. Helena team out. I don't think we need to tell you this, but they're very talented and they're athletic. And when they get rolling, it's hard to stop them, especially when they're at home. I think it's huge that Pope has this game in Slidell. I think, if you're looking for that, St. Helena make that trip over to Slidell, that's big for Pope. And yeah, it does. It gives you another shot in the arm. Like you said, the game a few weeks ago at Northlake and Pope was billed as this is the district championship. Northlake wins it, and then all of a sudden you turn around if you Pope and you're like, oh, we get to play again in week 10 with a chance to,
Yeah.
go ahead and force a tie in district. So here we go. So let's do it. So
Here we
that's
go.
exciting. Week 10's always fun when stuff like that happens. Also, I think it's important for coaches, players, fans, like and look, district titles do mean something. They do. At the end of the day, there's really no bearing on power rankings aside from who wins or loses the game. I think you keep that in mind, and you can set yourself up for the playoffs. Although being able to hang a banner it makes you feel good, but eyes on what's going to happen in the playoffs.
It's the eyes on the prize for sure. And look, I don't think because of power rankings that district titles are less valuable than they once were. I really don't, because my feeling on it is if you win a district championship, it means you're probably a pretty good football team. Right. So it's still a great goal for a lot of teams to have. And I don't have to tell Coach Pygott this, but don't put the ball in the air. Those kids will go get it.
Yes, they will.
Coach Pygott's not going to throw it unless he has to. So I know that well. Look, lastly, District 7 4A, Lakeshore, they win their district championship. Last 2 years, they didn't get it. They got it in Coach Indest's first year. So big for that program to do that. Once again, they win Friday night. Like 4 or 5 guys in the box score contributing, right? Brody Loudermilk didn't have this huge game on the ground, which he didn't need to. Dylan Cusack has a great game on the ground. Oja Gross has a great game on the ground. Young kid Gareth Hernandez has a great game on the ground. I say it all the time. I feel like if people listen to me too much, they're tired of hearing me say it. It doesn't matter who's playing where for them. Coach's system and the way he runs it and his expectation on a daily basis is what creates this. And I think it's so valuable for a high school football team to do what they do because they know who they are. It doesn't matter where they're at, who they're playing. They play their game. And that's it. It sounds simple, but it works.
No, and you say that you sound like a broken record or people it's because it's true. It's true. I mean, it's the truth. And yes, it helps to have someone like Brody Loudermilk that's taking a snap every down and he's going to make the right decision. And even if he doesn't, he's still big and athletic and physical enough to make the decision right on his own. But that system works so well, and it puts a defense in such a bind. And I think the other thing that it does is, aside from the technical X's and O's of it, it creates a mindset and a mentality within your program that, look, we're going to be physical. We're going to run it right at you. Everyone knows what we're going to do, and they're still not going to be able to stop it. This was a ball game at halftime. It was 14-7. Hannon actually was driving. We were driving inside the 50 to tie the game. We drew up a trick play, and the ball got picked off. But like, if we completed, it's a tie ball game. And Lakeshore, I think that was maybe as impressive as anything, is that it didn't faze them. They just continue to play, and then they start to pull away in the second half. And
I'll say this: you're not going to out-coach and out-scheme Coach Brent Indest. You're just not. I heard him Saturday morning in a different interview. He talked about, Hannon running some different sets defensively, odd and even, and what they did. And he said, we just said, the heck with it. Let's just go to a check me. Let's see what they're going to do, and we'll call something afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, dog, man. That's not like, you're not supposed to do that, Coach. That's not how this works for us, the rest of us. And then look, the rest of this district, Franklinton, we know what they're capable of. We know what Jacob Crane and that crew can do. Jaden Burkhalter has another couple of touchdown catches on Friday night. They kind of handled LaRondra in a game I thought was kind of a trap game, to be honest with you, because LaRondra can play football. I think Ryland James is still out, which is hurting those guys.
He is. Yeah.
Pearl River gets a big win against Pope. Big Gage Duran, man. I talk about him all the time. He's like an 80s fullback. running the ball downhill. He's 6 foot, 230 pounds. He'll run over you. He'll run by you. He had a
He
big
needs
game
the
running over
bar
2
coming
feet.
down on
He
the face
does.
mask.
He
Yeah.
does. Well, look, I think he goes like no wristbands, no gloves, no.
Yeah, no nothing.
He looks the part, man. So big District 7 4A. I don't talk enough about how good that district is either, but they're going to have, Pearl River's going to be in the playoffs. Orange will be in the playoffs. Frankton will be in playoffs. Lakeshore will be in playoffs. Hannon, they need some help and they need a win, right?
We need a win. Yeah, we need. I think we're the 25th team out of 24, so we need either help or win. A win, I think, seals the deal. So
it does.
Let's do it.
Yep. So that'll be a big one. So look, let's preview a little bit of what's coming up next week. We talked a little bit about it, but some of these matchups are really intriguing to me. We talked a little bit about the Fontainebleau Mandeville matchup. I think that's really intriguing. One thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of something new that I want to do. I want to bring up these player cards. I tried to get as many done as I could, but I want to talk a little bit about freshman quarterback Crew Calora. I don't know the last time I've seen a freshman quarterback play. When I was in high school, I was a senior. We had a freshman quarterback. It wasn't the same. We looked like we had a freshman quarterback. Okay. What he's doing at his age and as a freshman in 5A football, especially in District 6 5A, is one thing. What he did at St. Paul's, going back and watching that game, he was a man. Like, he's physical. He runs the ball hard. He makes great reads. He makes great throws. You can tell that the young man's ready for the stage.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was week 9, he's making his 8th start. You can tell he's comfortable. Like, it's his team.
Yeah,
like, that's just what it looks like, and he's confident. But when you look at his stat line, like, this isn't against Air. This is against St. Paul's. He throws for 234. He runs for 103. The best thing he did, I think they might have turned it over one time, but it wasn't a catastrophe, which you would think might happen with a 14-year-old. Like, it was. This is a team that, when we talked earlier about Chalmette showing up to somebody's place in the first round and it not being a fun time, whoever gets Mandeville first, they're going to be in for a long night, because this team is going to be confident. Their quarterback, you almost hate to say he's no longer a freshman because he's played the entire year, but he's still 14 years old. Yeah. But he's got command of the offense. They know their identity. They know. I think they might have even found a little more of an identity with his legs last week. Yeah. And if that can be a weapon to help him get out of trouble when he's not sure what he's looking at, this is going to be a scary matchup for somebody early in the playoffs.
And look, I compare that Mandeville team a little bit to Chalmette, where they're going to have to find a running game outside of their quarterback. Breeze Wilson and Crew Calora can't be the leading rusher every game. It's a long playoff run to do it that way, right? So, they're going to have to be creative a little bit. I will say this, Jake Giacchetti, wide receiver, had a big night against St. Paul's. 7 catches, 114 or so yards, a touchdown. He actually had a bad thumb injury in the first quarter, kind of hammered through that, but he's a tough kid. So kudos to him. That Ponchatoula-Hammond matchup we talked about. I think that's another. Look, if there was no other games going on and I could go to one, I might pick that game, just because it's one of those football games that you just know is going to be a really, really good one.
Yeah, and it's the old throw the records out when these two teams meet. I think it was Hammond 3 or 4 years ago was 0-9 going into this game, and Ponchatoula was like 7-2, and Hammond wins the game. Like, that's just the type of game this is. And when you have Ponchatoula coming off of what they did last week against Covington, they're going to be confident. They got athletes, like you mentioned, Walker. He's a sophomore. Their team is like a team full of sophomores almost. And you have a Hammond team who's having one of the better years that they've had recently. Now, can they go finish? Like, that's going to be the key. Can this Hammond team, can Coach Buckles gets his team to go out and finish it? But there you see, Will Walker, I'm glad we get to watch him play for the next 2.5 years.
I get so excited about these young guys.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, the young talent, man, but when you have an athlete like this who can catch it, he can run it, he can throw it, he can line him up everywhere. it's such it adds a dimension to your offense and your team that you can't replicate with anything else.
Well, look, it's not fair for a school to have a Jacoby Matthews and they get follow that up with a Will
Right.
Walker. He's kind of on that same trajectory. I've got to give Zaylen Bennett a big credit. That was only his second game with over 20 carries, and it was at 20 carries last week. 158 yards, 3 touchdowns. The young man just went over 1,000 yards. He's dynamic. And then Reginald Donut
I like
Monroe.
this guy. Yeah, Donut.
Look,
I like
and
him.
he just sent me the one of the best pictures I've ever seen. So I've got to update his card. But he's a phenomenal young man. He can scoot, man. He's dangerous in the return game. They get him the ball all over the place. You can see that he's got.
I think he had a game earlier in the year in which he ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown, and ran a punt back for a touchdown.
Yeah, he's got 4 return touchdowns, and ever since that happened after like week 3, nobody's kicking the ball to him, which is
well, if you have a guy named Donut returning a kick, I'm not kicking to him either.
Yeah, and then look. Lastly, we've got Covington at St. Paul's. Lil Brown jug. I throw everything out the window. St. Paul's is great. They run the ball well. Covington's struggling on offense right now. They've got a great defense. I think this is going to be a phenomenal matchup. It's one that I would lean towards St. Paul's just because of their running game and Cody Corrales and what he does. But it's a rivalry game. Coach Salter does a great job at Covington, and I think they have, outside of Chalmette, one of the best defenses around because they're so solid in their front 7. Like, they are really, really good. So we'll see what Coach Kenny Sears Jr. and the offense has in store if they use Brady Pearson a little bit more and throw the ball, Brennan Villa something over the top or something like that. But that's a really intriguing matchup for me.
It is. It's an intriguing matchup, not just because of the rivalry aspect, but because of the matchup. Just like you mentioned, the strength of this Covington defense is the front 7 and the run defense. The strength of the St. Paul's offense is running the football. So this will be interesting to see if St. Paul's can maybe unlock or unleash a different, utilize a different part of that offense, which is going to help them moving forward in the playoffs with the passing game or something other than Corrales. And if you're Covington, you need to win the game. I mean, just to make the playoff or to be sure that you're going to make the playoffs. Like aside from all the other stuff, you got to win the game. And it's been such an up and down season with them trying to figure out offensively, what it's going to look like. Can they get it all together for 1 week? And it's like, let's just push all our chips at the table for this week. Let's go win the game, and we'll figure out the other stuff later on. This game being at St. Paul's, though, I think is huge because playing at Covington's a little bit different.
Coach Salter's a legacy there, and he's got a ton of history. I haven't asked him this yet, but I want to know the last team that a team has averaged 15 yards a carry and lost a football game. They ran for 230 yards and averaged 15 yards a carry. That's just crazy. And look, before we leave that district, got to give Adam Connell. I heard Coach Sears talk about him a little bit this weekend, but he's kind of a hard
back, right?
Yeah, just came back. He had an MCL sprain. He missed 3 weeks, but he's a difference maker for those guys. Kind of a tight end H-back. He can run the ball a little bit. You see, he had 7 carries, 43 yards and a touchdown. He's spelling Corrales in a way that I think matches Cody's running style, where Troy Willis Jr. is a little bit different in how he runs. So I think Adam gives them a little bit more ability to stay in the offense that they're running with the offensive line and continue to do what they do without changing personnel so much. So to me, that's huge for those guys.
Yeah. And so much of a part of it too right now, just late in the season, is who's healthy. As a team, who can stay healthy or who can get healthy. Right. No, nobody's healthy. Who's the healthiest? So anytime you get somebody like that back, it kind of gives you another little push.
Yeah, it's huge. So look, District 7-5A, we talked about this. There's 4 2-1 teams. They each play each other. Chalmette at Salmon, Slidell at North Shore. I misspelled North Shore, so I'll correct that for every.
We never accuse that. Don't accuse us of being English majors. Right? That's right.
No, public school for the win. So Chalmette at Salmon, I think, is a fantastic matchup. 2 really great coaches, 2 coaches that have been around for a long time, 2 really good programs. This, once again, matches up what I think is the best offense against the best defense. So, to me, the game comes down to, I think Chalmette will move the ball. I'm not going to say it will because that's hard, but they'll be able to move the ball. can Salmon's defense get stops when they need to get stops? Because I do think Salmon is going to be hard to stop offensively. It's going to be a tale of what defense makes the stops when it's time to make stops. It might look a lot like last week of Chalmette and Slidell.
That's kind of where I'm thinking too. Is it's going to look very similar to last week's game. Who can get stops when they need them, and offensively, who can avoid making the costly turnover? Yeah. And I think that's going to go a long way in determining that. Also, maybe this may be a situation where the experience of Chalmette, what they did last year, kind of comes out to play. Like maybe they see the light at the end of the tunnel. It almost feels like they've kind of been waiting for a playoff run.
Yeah.
To like kind of just go all in.
Can we just get there?
Right.
Yeah.
That's almost what it feels like. So maybe this is what they're waiting on. But this is going to be an awesome matchup between two teams that very well could win first round playoff games.
Well, look, Cass, I know you've seen them play a good bit like I have. Their defense is so good.
It is.
I don't know of a secondary that's more physical than that group. They've got some guys in the secondary that will come up and impose their will. We'll leave it at that. And then look, Slidell at Northshore, another huge matchup on the East. I flip a coin, man. I don't know. You said it last week. You said Northshore, you know what you're going to get, but you don't know what you're going to get. And there you go again, right? I think
it's the same thing. But I don't say not in a bad way. Like I don't think that's a bad thing. Like it's just they might show up one week and they just might beat Covington.
Yeah.
And the next week we just don't know. But I'm still. Is Slidell is the quarterback going to come back next?
I think he's back this week. So that's
okay.
That's a huge difference. I mean, that team with him at the quarterback, and that's not a knock on Stanley Lang. I think Stanley played great in his first 2 weeks.
As well as you could expect, right? I mean,
Ricky Williams is a little different, especially in the run game and what he does running the football. And then we'll see if they get Jeremiah Birdlow back. That was a big loss for them not having him last week. Carlos Flemings Jr., he's fantastic. He's a speedster. He stretches the field big time. He caught one last week. And then you got to give credit to Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson, wide receiver, kind of the number 3 guy there. He's played phenomenally as of late and really done a good job. So really proud of him too. That's a good one. And then look, we touched on Fontainebleau Mandeville a little bit. We talked about Crew and what he did. So that's another fantastic matchup. I'm interested to see what Fontainebleau does now with kind of game 2 with Logan Askew back at quarterback and those playmakers where they need to be. Could be a big program win for Coach Kavanaugh and Coach Jones and crew. Look, they need to go play well and get that win for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely something that Fontainebleau can build on if they win heading into the offseason and then into setting up some big stuff for next year.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, District 7 4A, we touched on this. Hannon needs it. Hannon needs a win against a very tough opponent. I think what Franklinton does is maybe the weak point of Hannon defensively, because I think they're so good outside receiver-wise. They're so athletic that I think in my mind that's Hannon's weak spot, right? So I would envision, and Coach Don Kelly there, he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. I get to talk to him all the time, pick his brain, and he gives me a bunch of good stuff. But, I don't know what you do here. Do you stay in cover 3? Do you mix in some cover 4? You don't really want to run any cover 2 stuff. You're certainly not going to play, anything single high. So they're going to have to mix some things up. Jacob Crane, he reads defenses better than most. And Franklinton is a machine on offense when it gets going. So it'll be a tough matchup. But for Hannon, in my mind, run the ball, don't turn the ball over, get turnovers, and play the clock, right? I think that's the key to success.
Yeah, it is. And defensively for Hannon, we've got to figure out a way to get some pressure on Jacob Crane too.
Yeah.
And to help those guys out in the back end. Like Gabe Timmons is going to have to go out and have him a monster night. Obviously, Grayson Dupree, you just close your eyes and he makes 20 tackles a game. It's crazy. But I think we have to create some negative plays.
Future president of the United States, by the way, I'll tell you.
Yes, that is.
Yeah,
yes,
we'll all be working for him one day.
That is correct. But if we could create some pressures and negative plays defensively, and it's almost like Do you just take all the chances and knowing that if it doesn't work, they're going to score, but they're probably going to score anyway. But if it does work, you get a turnover. Like
Yeah.
that's almost kind of where it's at. And
Yeah.
then, offensively, it's going to be Braden Sprang's going to have to make a few plays in the passing game, but it's going to be Riley Jones. Hey, here's the football. Go do what honestly, what you've been doing all year long. Go get
And
us
look,
a $150 and see what happens.
I think Braden's played really well within the confines
Yes.
of the offense.
Yeah.
He's made good throws and offense, concept-wise, it works. So that's a big one. LaRaja at Pearl River, slobber knocker. Like I think teams should not have helmets or pads and go out with brass knuckles and just fist fight, because it would probably be a great
Yes.
game.
It would be a great fight. Aside from them being the same colors, essentially, I feel like this is the same team. Like they're the same.
Yeah.
They want to do the exact same thing. They do it in pretty similar fashion.
Yep.
So you're right. If you're looking for some hard-hitting physical football,
This is it.
This is it. Show up to Pearl River.
This is it. And then look, this next one, it's playoff football, man. This is
awesome.
This is like week 4 to play. This is a semifinal matchup in another world, right? Hahnville at Lakeshore. Hahnville's coming off of a loss against Destrehan last week, big rivalry game. They'll be ready to play. They're playing for power rankings. Coach Indest and crew at Lakeshore, if they win, they essentially solidify the number 2 seed. Yeah. If they lose, they could lose a bye. So there's a lot to play for here. It's a huge matchup.
It is, and I think it's kudos to both of these staffs for scheduling a Week 10 non-district game that looks just like this. This is
this playoff football.
Phenomenal. 100%, and it's exactly what it's supposed to be. But like you said, the Lakeshore, wraps up the district championship last week, but they're playing for being at home in the semifinals. Yeah, and they know what that felt like last year. Yeah, last year, if I'm not mistaken, they went to Franklinton in the quarterfinals, so they had to travel.
And almost won that one.
Right, they did. They almost win it, but if that game's at home, it might just be a different story. So this is a huge game for them, and I think this is a phenomenal matchup in Week 10.
It's must-see football. There's no doubt about it. And the quarterback Teague at Hahnville's been.
They've been really good.
Coach Boyne was at Destrehan as offensive coordinator, so I got to see him a lot. And
he's done a really good job over there.
Yeah, really good job getting that program around. District 8-3A, look, to me, it's not the game of the area. It's not the game of the Southeast. It's the game of the state. Jewel Sumner at A-Meet, those two teams in A-Meet City on a Friday night, both undefeated, go playing for a district championship. They're loaded with guys, right? Quarterback Drew Palmer at A-Meet is really coming on. He's starting to get some confidence. He's a big kid that can sling it. Jamon Dyson, he's phenomenal running back at Jewel Sumner. Jamarian Dillon, running back at A-Meet, he's a young sophomore. He kind of this bowling ball build that can run away from you. I think this is a fantastic matchup. I'll say this. What Jewel Sumner does on offense and how they've done it this year has been insane. The points that they've scored and the way that they've done it in a wing T offense, it doesn't even make sense.
No, it doesn't. They've going back to week 5, they've scored no less than 40 points in a game. And it is. And it's this game, like you said it, in A-Meet City. This is going to be what an atmosphere. This is going to be these two. Last year, Sumner got the better of them. Sumner beats them 29-27 last year. So A-Meet they're going to be out, for some revenge. And outside, look, A-Meet starts the year off 0-2. They lose to Franklinton and they lose to Hammond. And then after that, they start to roll. They are playing as you would expect an A-Meet team to do, to play their best football when the calendar turns to November. And then you have a Jewel Sumner team who kind of like you win this game. And I know what they've done as a program the last couple of years. You win this game and go 10-0, your respect around the state, I'm not talking about in this area, I think that's happened already, but your respect around the state goes up a whole lot.
Yeah, look, they're now 19-2 in the last 2 seasons. that is everybody has to lose one unless you go undefeated. So
That's right.
that's a really good record. So kudos to those guys. And look, Pine at Springfield. I think Pine just runs the ball, gets out of that when he gets ready for playoffs. Intriguing matchup with Bogalusa and Albany. I think Albany and that offense is kind of evolving a little bit. Bogalusa got a win against Springfield, so we'll see what happens there. But that's an exciting matchup too. Lastly, District 9 2A. Independence at North Lake, it's another one that I think North Lake should handle, run the ball, get ahead early, and kind of lean on Casnave. We'll see how that goes. St. Helena at Pope John Paul, we touched on this one. It's going to be a fantastic matchup. Two very contrasting styles. Coach Pygott and that wing T offense. They run, what I'm accustomed to in the 90s, kind of a South Lafourche wing T, kind of a power wing T offense. And St. Helena is going to spread it out. They might not have a running back in the backfield the entire game.
No,
so
if they could put 7 receivers on the field, they would.
and look, I talked to Coach Pygott. They've got a linebacker. He's a junior, Jake Roniger. He fits everything you want in a linebacker. He's got size. He's got speed. I see him spying a little bit and kind of keeping that quarterback, at bay. But that's a big one. And then look, Prairieville. St. Thomas schedules Prairieville. Who knew who Prairieville was? Prairieville's got some big wins this year.
Exactly what I was about to say. You schedule this game with the team that is now in their second year of varsity football, regardless of the classification, and you're thinking, all right, this is going to be a game we compete in. And all Prairieville has done is they've gone 3-3 in an extremely tough District 5A. It's tough. It's almost like just a tough break for St. Thomas Aquinas.
It is.
So
it is.
We'll see kind of how they play it out.
And look, I'll say this about Pope John Paul. You can almost look at Dominic Smith's stat line after the game and tell how that game went. But he runs for 100 yards, you're going to win the game. That's just who they are.
And that's probably even more important this week. I think that's kind of what that's not kind of what they want to do. That's what they want to do all the time.
Yep.
But if you can keep that St. Helena, those athletes off the field, that's very important for them to do this.
Yeah, that changes the game. Well, look, Cass, it's week 10. Next week we get to talk playoff brackets.
Talk about the playoffs.
And look, how cool was that to have Eric Richey on and cover
He's
volleyball,
awesome.
man?
He makes you, when you have a conversation, the energy that he has, it's not fake. That's how he is all the time. But he makes you just want to love what you do. It's obvious he enjoys what he does. The product that he has put together, obviously it's second to none. But man, how about his dropping his volleyball knowledge on us? That's great.
It's incredible. Look, if his goal is to know players by names, he has succeeded because he knows them all.
100%.
He knows them all.
And it is his Power 25 that he puts out for volleyball. Like that's not just him guessing on, like there's legwork put into that, and that's it's what he again. I'm almost amazed at what he's able to do.
No one covers volleyball better than VSN and Eric Richey. I'll say that in the entire state. There's nobody. He's second to none, and that's why we wanted to have him on. Lastly, look, we got to give a shout out to Game Day Cuts. We've been having Game Day Cuts. Scroll at the bottom here. It's where I get my hair cut. I got head massage here recently, which was really cool.
How'd that go?
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to go to sleep after. Don't do it if you need to go do something
after. In the middle of the day.
But visit GameDayCuts.com. You can schedule an appointment online. You can give them a call at 985-206-9528. Great staff here. They do a really good job. Brad Richey, the owner here, has been courteous enough to let us use his place, and they do a great job. A bunch of stuff here. You can see, there's stuff everywhere. It's like a sports museum in here.
Like a museum, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we've got Mandeville, we've got St. Paul's, we got Hannon. I just talked to him. He wants some stuff from the East, so we'll talk to the coaches of the East.
He's got a new Hannon baseball helmet. I know I saw him the other day and gave him a new helmet. So he's got
So kudos to you, kudos to him, and being a partner of Northshore Prep Report. Cass, any last thoughts before we leave here tonight?
No, it's just I can't wait. I think this last part of the season or this time of the year is one of the best of the year. Best parts of the year. You got football going into the home stretch of the playoffs. You got volleyball playoffs. We just had a phenomenal World Series that was played. It finally feels like football weather. I think that's makes me happy. I don't know if that makes
Oh
me
yeah,
weird to some, but I like when it gets cold
no
in
doubt.
football season. But a week 10 that aside from the district standings and what it means, a lot of implications on not just playoff standing with where you're on the bracket, but getting into the bracket. So there's a whole lot left to play for over here in the North Shore.
Yeah, and look, I have to admit, I've thought of this the last couple of weeks. Like, I'm starting to get sad a little bit, right? That football is about to end because I feel like we just
It
started.
just started. I
Yeah,
know. And it happens like that all the time. I
I'd
don't
say it every
understand
year.
it. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
understand it.
The good news is, like you said, we got volleyball playoffs coming up. We're about to dig into soccer, which is really exciting. We're going to cover
Basketball
all the
kicks off
primary.
here, or tips off, I guess you could say here soon.
Yep, tip off.
Tip
We
off.
had a
Okay.
huge scrimmage last Saturday at Northshore High School. Bunch of teams played there.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to try to hit up Mandeville and Pearl River at Mandeville at 7:00. It's another scrimmage. Catch those guys. So girls and boys basketball, we'll bring you wall-to-wall coverage just like we do with football, soccer as well. So
And look, there's nothing like high school football, but high school basketball is, I think, one of the most, I don't want to say underrated because it's out there, but like going to a high school basketball gym on a Tuesday or Friday night, I think is one of the coolest things in the world.
well, look, when the student section's going and the band's playing
Yeah.
and the smell of
Yep.
popcorn and concessions,
The popcorn, that's how the popcorn.
it's the popcorn.
Great.
I don't know why.
It's great. I
It's
know. It's
popcorn
great.
time. But I was probably a college basketball fan before I was anything else as a kid. So
Me too. I've got it on right now, and the college basketball tips off tonight.
that's it. It's the big
Yeah.
one. It's tip off day.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got some exciting stuff coming. We're excited. For myself, Mike McMillan, and co-host Cass Hargis, appreciate you all tuning in and watching our show. Look forward for some continued content. Got a bunch of new episodes of Coach's Corner that are coming out too. Cass is his turn to hit up Coach's Corner here soon too. So we'll have a bunch of new content.
I'm in.
Stay tuned. Volleyball schedule is going out tomorrow, and then we'll have volleyball all week in these opening rounds. So volleyball happens quick. If you haven't seen the volleyball brackets, in 7 days, Lafayette will be happening. So
Yeah, it is very quick. Yeah.
It goes quick. But for myself and Cass, we appreciate you joining. You guys stay safe and continue to follow. We appreciate it.